So the drivers, to define them a little bit, are basically the engine of conscience, right? Like the drivers are how we're defining conscience and how it moves in you, the leader, right? So we've got three drivers. There's guiding instinct, tenacious inquiry, and fierce resolve. Hello, Julie Euber. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Hanna?
I'm doing just grand.
What's new and exciting for you?
I've been struggling because I'm trying to do essays on Substack and post on social media, and it feels hard to be authentic in what I'm talking about when I'm not responding to a problem somebody's brought me, but rather trying to imagine a problem and respond to a theoretical issue. That it's much harder for me to communicate in the way I like to, this like candid, honest, straightforward sort of way. So that's my struggle lately.
Hanna, you're really good with people. And I think that when you talk to people, you give them something that they walk away with and they're excited about. And a paper doesn't respond that way. A piece of paper that you write on or a screen that you're typing into, it's just different.
It totally is. Thank you for that. It's always nice to hear. Like, I know it's true, but it's nice to be affirmed. So thank you. And yeah, it just is what it is. It's the challenge of trying to bring an idea into the world, is that a lot of it feels kind of like shouting into the void. Because, right, like people are liking stuff, but I'm not getting a lot of feedback yet. I'm not getting, I don't have that response. And it's kind of lonely being a creator without audience response. So.
Well, and it sounds like that's a way that our podcast listener can help too, is by sending their questions in. I know we want that for the second season, but I imagine it might help you now too as you're generating content.
Absolutely. I love feedback and impressions and responses and questions. So please email us at podcast@conscience-driven-leadership.com or find me on any social platform, and please engage, because I need your feedback. I need your response to know if I'm on the right track.
I feel like that's a good seg into what we wanted to talk about today too.
Yeah. Absolutely. We were going to talk about the drivers today, kind of the last foundational piece of conscience-driven leadership. So the drivers, to define them a little bit, are basically the engine of conscience, right? Like the drivers are how we're defining conscience and how it moves in you, the leader, right? So we've got three drivers. There's guiding instinct, tenacious inquiry, and fierce resolve. Where do you want to start, Julie? Which of these sinks its teeth into you the most?
Well, guiding instinct seems like a good place to start to me. I think that that's really a good entrance into it. And it does seem relevant to that drive to make sure that you're doing all the things that make systems work for people.
Guiding instinct is the ability to see what's possible, right? Like guiding instinct is the pull that draws you toward possibility when systems work well for people. So it's seeing it's not even necessarily seeing how systems are failing people. It's seeing how they could serve people better. And sometimes that looks like recognizing how a system is failing the people who are working inside of it. But often it's just a sense of like, couldn't we do this better? Like, why are we not doing this obvious better way, right? Why are people not centered? Why are people not valued above everything? Because the people are what make the system work.
So, do you think that CDL leaders tend to get frustrated in cultures that are, but this is how we've always done it?
Oh
And
my
that
God.
guiding principle for us?
Yes, CDL leaders are super, yes, conscience-driven leaders are definitely frustrated in "this is how we've always done it" cultures, because there's no way how we've always done it is responding to the needs of people in the moment. Just
No.
facts. That's just how it works. You been in those cultures, Julie?
I've been in a couple, yeah, but I also just know what that energy feels like when I'm not in one. In some
Mm.
ways, more obvious whenever I'm not in one and I know I can innovate and be thinking about what the future could be and not being stuck in systems that are already set up just because they're there.
This is something I super encountered when I was first leading in the circus. Like, this was the way that it was. There's the right way, the wrong way, and our way, and we do it our way, and that is not up for debate. So the way we've always done it was absolutely the answer I got to everything I wanted to do at first, and it drove me up a wall.
So what'd you do about it?
I'm not very good at, like, listening to bad advice. That's a theme for me. Hannah, this is just the way it is pretty much guaranteed to, like, fire up that oppositional energy where I go, like, "Hell it is. I'm gonna do it different. Bye." Often, I say it more professionally or diplomatically than that, but not always. I think I definitely got into several conversations where I don't care how we've always done it. We're gonna try something new because why wouldn't we try something new?
Yeah, absolutely, because it is the journey. The way you do things is the core of your work. It's not necessarily the outcomes, it is also how you get there, and how you get there
Yes.
matters. And I think that if you're
Yes.
too focused on those outcomes and you forget that process, that's where some of those issues can come in.
Absolutely. It's a lack of curiosity, and I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, like, I am driven by curiosity, like, and I think curiosity drives all conscience-driven leaders, and so guiding instinct is a kind of curiosity. It's an Yeah, I think that moves us actually really well into the second one, which is relentless inquiry, which has as an image a nice little, Sherlock Holmes deerstalker hat, because I feel like relentless inquiry is perfectly encapsulated by Sherlock Holmes. If you're not a fan of Sherlock Holmes, you'll have to learn about this, but it's one of my things I'm a nerd about is Sherlock. I've read all of them, I've seen almost all the films, I've listened to the radio plays, like, Sherlock Holmes has always just captured my imagination, and I think it's because it's relentless how he follows a thing that matters to him, and I think I really relate to that. Like, once you have that vision of or that idea that about what could be possible when people are served, then you've gotta go like, the natural next step is, well, I gotta figure out why we're not doing that. What's the reason? What are the obstacles? What stands between here and what's possible? And it's relentless, and so I like that Holmesian energy of insisting on discovering every little thing, every piece of the puzzle the so that you can find the answer and then break down the answer because the answer is the obstacle.
The answer is the obstacle? Tell me more.
I was like, "Does that even make sense? The answer is the obstacle?" Um Well, when your relentless inquiry, what you surface in this part of in this drive or what this driver brings up is what stands in the way. And so the curiosity moves from what could be possible to what is in the way of what's possible. What is the obstacle? The genuine obstacle that is keeping us from that better possibility that your first curiosity sparked.
And I think another way to take that phrase that also comes up for me is the answer is the obstacle because if you're so focused on one answer, you're missing a lot of possibilities. You're missing a lot of different ways to look at something. And so sometimes when I'm working with someone and they are very sure they have the solution, I'll say, I love this. I'm not saying we don't do it that way, but talk to me about other ways to do it or other solutions that we could take in because I want you to have those if this one doesn't turn out to be the right path for you. I found that that's really helpful because sometimes having the answer is the obstacle to getting the actual answer that we need to solve the bigger problem.
Oof. That's like unlocking a thing. Hmm.
Tasty.
Tasty. Who knew the answer is the obstacle was gonna turn into this, like, multifaceted way to view things. You're totally right, we get very attached to our idea of how we're gonna do something, whether that's how we're gonna realize our vision ultimately, whether that's as a leader or whether that's in a project or whether that's with anything. I'm thinking back to my, like, struggle of how to communicate in the void, right? Like, in the vacuum, and I'm wondering where my answer is the obstacle. I'm wondering where I have an idea of how this is supposed to go that is preventing me from seeing how it could go in a way that serves me better, right? Like, I am really good at orienting toward how do I do things that serve other people better. I am you know, predictably terrible at turning that lens on myself and go, how do I do this in a way that serves me better? Sometimes I'm okay at it, but a lot of times it just doesn't occur to me. Ooh, Hannah, she's fine. We don't need to worry about Hannah.
Kind of blowing my mind right now. This is interesting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what are different ways you can approach that? The kind of writing the seemingly audienceless creation of content. What are different ways to do that? What are the other answers that we're missing?
Oh, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to come up with those in the moment. I love it as a I'm like, I'm gonna need to chew on that a little bit and let it I'm probably gonna have to talk to Luke about this and my coach. Like, this is gonna be there's a lot of conversations that are gonna have to follow this before the, like, answers bubble up. But yeah, the traditional wisdom is always like, "Well, imagine the person you're talking to." I'm like, "Imagining, like, every person is different. Do you not understand? I can't imagine who's your ideal client or who's the person you most wanna work with?" I'm like, "The person in front of me."
I mean, that's
Right?
great. Yeah.
It serves me really, really well, but it's not great for the, like, whole figuring out how to talk to people I haven't met yet. That's the obstacle. It's like, "But how do I talk to someone I don't know?"
And if everyone is different, then how do you write for an audience where everyone is different and has different needs? Because if you write for everyone, in a lot of ways, you write for no one. So how do you get to that personalization without the person?
I I hope to crack that puzzle here shortly.
TBD.
Uh, yeah, that's that's the question. Maybe by the beginning of next season, I'll have figured it out, and we can talk about how I closed it down. I've been poking at it different ways. I did a big tarot reading on it today, honestly, like
Ooh.
trying to understand what are my internal blockages and what are where who can I become if I can resolve those obstacles and blockages, and it was, whew, it was a good one. It was a powerful reading today.
I just recently started doing different tarot spreads and things like that. And it's not because I think the cards are going to be my crystal ball, tell me what's in the future, but it allows me to unhook from the way I'm thinking about something and look at things through different perspectives, through different cards, through different relationships between cards. And it becomes more of a thinking tool, kind of an exploration tool than anything else. Would you say that's how you use it, or is it a little different for you?
Totally. It activates curiosity, right? Like, that's what it does, is it shifts you out of thinking you have the answer into asking a question and being curious about what what is being reflected and how to interpret that, and, like, even if the cards say a bunch of stuff you totally don't agree with, that's information, right? It's something to respond to. I had a coach put it that way to me once, and I found that a really helpful perspective for all kinds of kinda esoteric things that I'm curious about and interested in and like to understand, but I don't it's not that I subscribe, and they're not a religion, it's not something that I'm attached to, but he said, it gives you something to respond to, and sometimes we need something external to respond to because whatever we're responding to internally isn't breaking us through. So, I was talking to a friend about something yesterday, and in explaining something, I named a thing I had not really been aware of about, like, kind of my identity and sense of worthiness in the world. And that's just been, like, chewing on me, and I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting thing. Oh, maybe I'll go check out I'll see what a tarot spread has to say about that." So, it was cool. Like, it was interesting stuff came up about my, like, sense of safety and, worries about rejection, things that we all deal with. I'm not immune. I'm a human, much as it frustrates me. My husband is often like, "Remember the part where you're not a superhero, Hannah?" I'm like, psh, no, I refuse."
You're one of my favorite humans. I'm glad you're a human.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I have to remember to, um, center my humanness in all its frailty sometimes and grapple with that.
Yeah, that comes back to the cards for me too, because I was surprised once I started doing it how much it really comes down to the person reading the cards and why they're reading it. It's the card itself doesn't tell you the answer, it's how you respond to it emotionally, intellectually, like how you feel it in your body in some ways. And that's what gives you the answer of, oh, why did I have a negative reaction to that? let me think about that in a way that's more productive than my brain just going in all these different directions and going to more worry than productive thought processes.
Totally. Gives you an alternative perspective. And there's lots of ways to do it, right? I think people journal. That's a way to be curious about what's in your brain and see what comes out and process your thoughts. Talking to people and being reflected, any kind of therapy. Like we're humans. We've developed infinite numbers of ways um, to spark curiosity because I think curiosity is what gets us out of stuckness and even though we're kind of drawn towards stuckness. But I think conscience driven leaders maybe are less drawn towards stuckness. I think we tend to run curious as as people, and that might be part of what leads us to conscience driven leadership is because we're curious, like how does this get better, what's in the way, so the first two drivers are all about curiosity and pointing it in different directions, and then we have fierce resolve, and fierce resolve is no longer curious. It's gonna do something, damn it. Might not be a great idea, we'll find out, but it usually works out. But I think fierce resolve is about action when it's time. It's one of those places where intuition tells you go, and you go and do, even when you can't explain the reason, even when you can't articulate what's going to come out of it. It's that can't not moment of well, I am driven to do this because I know it will make things better for people. That's ultimately where first resolve comes in and completes the triumvirate of the drivers. And I think those three things, they work constantly in concert. They're not right there. It's drivers is an action verb on purpose. These are not things that sit alone on shelves. These are things that are interacting with each other constantly and creating energy and creating movement and momentum that fuels the conscience driven leader.
Yeah, and going back to your earlier point that we don't tend to get stuck, I think if, for me personally, if I get stuck, it's because I'm trying to be curious about too many things at once. And I think that that resolve helps. It helps you say, okay, this is the one I really need to focus on right now. And I don't know why, because the other things are important too. But I really need to put my energy there because I only have so much energy in this world. I am human too.
Like, high five to the humans out there being human and trying to do everything. Um, yeah, absolutely. Like, fierce resolve is it's the thing that picks. It's the thing that they all have motion, but they all have different kinds of motion, right? Guiding instinct is like a very internal call toward what's possible, and it's a compass needle moving and helping point you toward where things can be and or where things can be improved, where things could exist. And then tenacious inquiry is it's kind of the hound dog almost motion of nose to the ground. Like, I will follow this trail, like wherever it goes through forests and rivers and over obstacles. I can't leave until I know where this leads. And then fierce resolve is the thing that moves other people too. I think, like, I like the concept, though, as you put it, Julie, of it chooses for you. It helps you choose which pursuit to get you unstuck. But I think fierce resolve also is the thing that gets other people unstuck.
No, I think that makes sense because at that point, you have the information and the drive to move forward with something. And
Yeah.
so if someone is stuck in that indecision or they are in that space of not knowing where to move next, you can create some certainty there.
hmm Or people are stuck in the familiar discomfort. It's one of my favorite
Mm.
sayings in the world. People we love as humans are familiar discomfort. We are very opposed generally to unfamiliar comfort. And I think that fierce resolve helps jar people out of their attachment to the familiar discomfort so that they can explore what unfamiliar comfort might look like.
Can you give me an example of a familiar discomfort?
I think they're very personal, like, we all tend to have them, but, something like okay, so a story from my early leadership, and I've written about this too. I used to really feel like it was my responsibility to withstand personal criticism, that personal criticism was somehow a badge of honor. Like if someone was telling me why I was doing a bad job, I needed to listen to that. Like I needed to sit there and withstand it because yeah, somehow it earned me credibility or it was important. And I think, as I've grown and done the work on myself, I've realized that like, oh no, that was just an attachment to some unhealthy patterns that I grew up with. Where like I expected criticism more than I expected praise. And so if I was doing something, especially if I was doing something bold, when someone I cared about wanted to like really come after me, I would literally I was actually this happened in a hotel room one time on a road show where someone I had known a very long time and I had grown up working with and now I supervised was just laying into me like in a problematic fashion about why I was wrong about everything. And my colleague, who was another woman my age when we were in our 20s, interrupted, and this was publicly, like, there were a bunch of people around for this situation, and so my colleague and friend and, also, like, fellow conscience-driven leader, kind of building the road as we went in our youth, interrupted and said, "This is not okay, like, this needs to stop," and I sat her down, I was like, "Absolutely not, I need to hear this, this is important," and I, like, continued with this public dressing down because it felt like it was uncomfortable, but I knew how to handle it. There's a human tendency to be like, "Oh, I know how to handle that, therefore let me take it." That's familiar. It might not be comfortable, I might not enjoy it, but I know how to deal with it. I will take on more of that. I will continuously accept this pattern because it's familiar to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And then years later, when I had worked through all that and the person who yelled at me no longer worked for me because obviously that's not somebody who probably should be part of the team if they think everything I'm doing is wrong. Later, I had another young performer call me and just lay into me, and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, "You need bye. Like, I'm sorry. I don't need to listen to this anymore because I had learned how to put down the like, "Oh, this is important. If someone is criticizing me, that means they're telling the truth." No, someone criticizing you isn't necessarily telling the truth. They might be telling their truth, maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't have to be your truth. Like it's not necessarily relevant to what you're doing, and it might not have anything to do with you.
Yeah. In my previous role, I did a lot of work with young career scientists and doctors. And something I realized they needed to hear because I needed to hear it was that, yes, get all the advice that you can, but one of the most important skills you'll gain is knowing which advice to take and which advice is not for you because that will happen. And I think that we sometimes build that mentor mentee approach from uh, the mentor as the sage, as opposed to letting that be conversational and letting mentees try things on, but know that not all of it is for them. And I think sometimes that happens with that familiar discomfort too of, well, it doesn't feel good, but it's what I need to do to be successful or to build that vision that I want to see in the world. But it's not always the case. And sometimes that gut feeling that it's not right is real.
Yes. I think a common familiar discomfort is, well, I just need to work harder. And I think an unfamiliar comfort that that I work with people a lot on is around boundaries. Boundaries create comfort, but it's really unfamiliar and getting there is unfamiliar. And when you first have boundaries with people and accountability or any kind of conversation where you're like, "Hey, no, that's not okay." A lot of us just were not raised with those skills, and so using it is very unfamiliar. Even if the outcome really helps us, it doesn't make it easy. And so, yeah, what are those areas where, like, you can be protecting yourself and growing in the direction that you are meant to grow in, as your example points to, Julia, right? Like, just because someone's older does not mean they know what's right for you. Like, their experience has served them. They're sharing with you the things that worked for them. They're a different person.
And I do think that's where that fierce resolve comes in handy too. Because if you know your directionality and where you're going to go and you feel that drive, then you can figure out what is the noise. Some of that criticism is going to be noise. And it means that person is not aligned with what you think is an important change in the world. And then suddenly it doesn't really matter what they're saying. In fact, it's kind of problematic that they're so focused on it. What why was he so bored that he had to spend all this time dissecting you?
Right. Yes. Well, because the system was working really well for him by not working well for everybody else. So he was very motivated to keep it the way it was, the way it's always been. There are people who benefit in systems. Like any system benefits somebody. Like even systems that harm a lot of people, they don't do that arbitrarily. They do that because they really benefit a few people. And those few people are generally very opposed to your ideas about change. And understanding why, when you're taking something away, right? Like leveling the playing field, creating equity does take something away from people with privilege. They are losing something. They're not wrong to perceive a loss. And often when people are losing privilege, they don't respond in a friendly fashion.
Oh, yes. So this is a way also to kind of speak truth to power and why we shouldn't just take everything at face value because there's reasons someone has a certain opinion and it's not always aligned with what you want to see in the world.
Absolutely. Yep. There's always a reason someone has an opinion. There's reasons we have opinions, but those reasons aren't visible until those reasons are often never visible, right? We can dissect it. We can try and figure it out in the long run. What is the reason somebody would defend a position like that is so harmful to people? Well, probably because it benefits them. Um, it's a fair assumption. Well, I think that's a pretty good summary of what the drivers are and how they create the engine of conscience in a conscience-driven leader. And I think that leads us kind of to the end of this first season, don't you think?
I think so. I think we did the thing.
Yeah, we did the thing. Yay! Um, we are super excited about season 2, which we'll start recording in a few weeks-ish. So please send us your questions, comments, feedback. We would love to have some things to respond to in our second season. You can reach us at podcast@conscience-drivenleadership.com. And shout out to our amazing producer, Anna Miller, not me, Anna with no H. And we're going to also be coming at you with a little bonus episode for this season that's a little bit different. So we're excited about that too.
This has been really fun. I can't wait for season 2.
Yay. Thank you, Julie. You're a rock star. I'm Hanna Miller,
I'm Julie Euber.
and this has been Inside Conscience Driven Leadership. Thanks so much.